Welcome, everybody. Good Shabbat. Today, we continue our discussion of Ecclesiastes, and this is part two of a short series. I don't expect it to be that long, but it is a very interesting book from the Hebrew Testament that expresses similar ideas in many different ways, trying to drive home a point to those that have eyes to see and ears to hear, as Mar Yeshua often was quoted as having said. So we'll dive right in with Ecclesiastes book 1 or chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. The words of the teacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher, vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Last week, we began discussing the term Havel or Habel, depending on how you hear it and see it and speak it. But the phrase vanity of vanities we discussed last week and we'll review very quickly now is a pretty misunderstood phrase because a lot of people, at least in the United States, think of vanity as being, oh, I think I'm so pretty or I'm prideful. And that's not what's being said here. So a translation that our tradition, our apostolic tradition from which we come from in this church, translates vanity of vanities as illusion of illusions, that the world is illusory in the promises it makes us. We all kind of put all of our eggs into one basket. We expect all these impermanent things in the world, relationships, people, things, jobs. We expect those things to give us permanent happiness. But in the end, everything is impermanent. It's illusory. It promises comfort, it promises happiness, but then ultimately that goes away. And that is the key meaning of what the author of Ecclesiastes means by vanity of vanities. It's illusion of illusions. We are tricked into believing that material life in a body will give us happiness, or at least lasting happiness. And it cannot, because the body itself is impermanent. One day, everything must dissolve or die. And that might sound morbid, but that is the point of Ecclesiastes. The teacher is often thought to be King Solomon, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. But this book was written well after the time of King Solomon, and it most likely is not written by him, but attributed to him. So what does this mean? The teacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem, he says, vanity of vanities, vanity of vanities. Everything is illusion, everything is illusory. All is vanity, all is illusory. And then he starts describing his thesis, so to speak. What do people gain from all the toil at which they toil under the sun? Right? A generation goes and a new generation comes, but the earth remains forever. So he's clearly talking about impermanence here. You know, and King Solomon obviously had a lot of wealth. He had a lot of privilege, so to speak, in today's language and words. What do people gain from all the toil under the sun? Nothing. What can we take with us when we die? Nothing. All that we've attained in this world, our house, our belongings, our possessions, our money, our kids, our family, our friends, none of it comes with us. In the end, everything must disappoint us in a type of separation. The only thing that can give lasting pleasure or any kind of permanence at all is the realization of one's soul and the marriage of that soul with God, the union one has in his or her soul with God. But other than that, so many people work every day really hard to get the things they want, to get the comforts they want. But in the end, after all that work is done, you can't take it with you. You can't take it with you. The only thing you can take with you is spiritual merit that is earned by doing the teachings of the Torah or doing the teachings of a great master like Mor Yeshua. The two together in this context, in the context of this church, is what does create some kind of permanent footing in the universe. When we do the teachings of God, when we walk the way, and whenever we do the teachings of Jesus, we're creating good merit that does go with us afterwards. We could experience different realities after clinical death that are very calming and pure and beautiful, so-called heavenly realms. And there are also difficult realms too, in which we reflect on the mistakes we've made. And hopefully at that time, the soul aspires to transcend those difficulties in the next incarnation it experiences. So in short, the basic idea of this is that all of the seeming pleasures of the world are illusory. The only thing that truly gives permanent joy is if we really fully seek God and attain God, attain union with God. And we all see our grandparents dying, right? We all know someday, at least under the surface of our mind and daily thoughts and daily comings and goings of life, we all know that someday we're going to die. But nobody takes it seriously. Knowing the pure nature of impermanence, of the fact that life is like a pendulum that swings from pleasure to pain back and forth. Nothing in this world is dependable. And when you realize that trouble, that nature, the disappointment, the disgust with the world and its promises, its empty promises, then and only then will a soul begin to truly seek God in earnest. So here again, just rapidly reviewing Vanity of Vanities. Is everything vanity or meaningless? In many contemporary translations, English translations of the Bible, we see everything is meaningless as the translation of everything is vanity. So Vanity of Vanities can be misleading. Everything is meaningless. Certainly life is not meaningless. I mean, it may seem that way to people, but if life were meaningless, what would be the point? We do have certain goals if we're on the spiritual path. And that is the meaning of life, is to seek and attain God, to seek and attain the one permanent joy there is, which is union or divine marriage. These wrong translations of the Hebrew term habel are the likely causes of some calling this text heretical or inappropriate. A lot of people saw it as a very unspiritual text, when really it's deeply spiritual. It's challenging the notions, pulling the rug out from underneath of us about what is really of utmost importance. Most people, they only seek making more money, getting a better job, getting a better car, having a nicer house, getting the best clothes, getting the next gadget, getting this. If I get this, or if I learn that, I will be happy. But then they get this or they get that and they're still not happy, or they want the next thing. That is what illusion of illusions means. Habel means the expectation that a fulfillment of one desire will make me happy, or any particular desire or desires will make me happy, is like stepping on quicksand. You're just going to get more stuck. You're going to keep on sinking into your desires. And again, it's not that we shouldn't be getting things that make us happy or comfortable with our rightfully earned money. Sure, we should be comfortable. But you should understand that nothing you get is going to give you lasting pleasure. It might give you pleasure for now, or for a few years, or even for a few decades if we're lucky. But then after we get something, say I'm a millionaire, or I get a nice mansion and I have the best of everything, then you're worried about losing it all. So it only brings about more suffering. So yes, we should get things that make us happy. We should be happy. We shouldn't, otherwise we will start to think that life is meaningless as we're going along the spiritual path. But the real nature is to always understand that no matter what we earn or get or receive in this life, whether through dissolution over time of things wearing down or wearing away, or whether through our own death. All that we've attained will someday go away. So find your anchor, find your roots, ground your soul in God. Find happiness before death comes, before impermanence robs you of the chance to continue to grow spiritually. So many people did not appreciate or understand this wisdom we're talking about, or the kind of humor and sarcasm that the writer of Ecclesiastes did use. And sometimes it was quite sharp sarcasm. It was against the way of the world, the way people lived, the way people avoided impermanence and avoided death. So this was kind of a slap in the face to many people. And a lot of people just, I guess, weren't spiritually couth enough to understand what was going on here. So they tried to get it banned, and obviously they didn't because it's still in the Hebrew canon. So again, Habel in Ecclesiastes means illusion, illusion, or possibly illusion of illusions. The Hebrew word Habel refers to the illusory impermanence of the world, people, places, things. Our education, the whole universe for that matter, is impermanent. Everything is illusory is the correct understanding of this wisdom tradition. Vanity of vanities implies a sense of worthlessness, futileness, or as some translations have it, meaninglessness. But the world and life is not meaningless. It's beautiful. It's worthwhile. It has so much meaning in it, but it's impermanent. And there's a difference. And that's where the problem is with most people interpreting this scripture, in my opinion. So the world is not meaningless. The world and life is beautiful, full of love, full of compassion and empathy in its highest form, in its highest manifestation. But still, despite that, it's impermanent. And no matter how good it gets, and it can get so good, and we want it to get so good, it's not going to give you lasting pleasure. That's what we need to understand. So the world is a vehicle for and a catalyst for spiritual growth. However, it is illusory and impermanent. Nothing of this world can bring permanent joy, ease, or comfort. Nothing, 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 nothing. It's impossible. God alone can provide this for us. So, as we talked about earlier, the whole point of suffering, of losing your girlfriend, losing your wife, losing your car, losing your health, losing your money, losing your savings account, the exhaustion of whatever it is that we had that we thought would make us happy. When that happens over and over again, there's a certain point in our spiritual evolution where we say, this is not worth my energy. What is it, if anything, that can give me permanent joy? Is there anything worth seeking? Or is it all meaningless in the ultimate scope of things? These were the things that the writer of Ecclesiastes wanted us to ponder and wanted us to become enlightened upon and to understand and take to heart so that we may grow spiritually. Ecclesiastes 1:5-9. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around to the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they continue to flow. All things are wearisome, more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, and the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. So the sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. Time stops for no one. My spiritual master used to say that, and she still says it regularly, I believe, but it used to be a very common phrase in the old days. She used to say, There's no pain in losing $1 million because you can always make $1 million again. But you can never regain 1 minute lost or wasted. Every day that goes by, from the day we're born, we're dying. Not to sound morbid, but this is the message we need to understand as impermanence. Time keeps on going. The wind keeps on blowing. Nothing's going to stop the wind. Nothing's going to stop the days from coming and going. So time keeps on going. What are we doing with our time? Are we seeking empty material pleasures only, or are we prioritizing God first? If we prioritize God first, then all things will come unto us, as the Master Jesus said. So if we focus on God, all that we truly need will come. And I can tell you from my life experience that that's true. It is absolutely true. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to be successful at the things we want to be successful at, or that we shouldn't be happy. But if we seek God, then God, like the father, mother, loving being that God is, will support those that love him or her, right? Next, it talks about the futility of all desires. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. It's the same thing. Our desires are endless like the ocean, and our thoughts are like rivers that are constantly flowing into desire, the endless desires of our hearts, of our minds. And desire can never be quenched. Just look at your life. Everybody says, if I get this, I'll be happy. But then immediately after getting that, you want something else, right? Or you realize that that thing that you thought would make you happy, that girl, that house, that car, that whatever it is that we're desiring, once you get it, number one, you realize it didn't fulfill you, because nothing in this world can fulfill our soul. The soul can only be fulfilled by God, right? So then you seek another girl. You divorce the first wife and you seek out another girl. You get another car. You buy another house, or you add on to your house, or you remodel your house. But guess what? You're still not going to be happy, because happiness only comes from within. And all of this wears you down. It's wearisome because, I'll be happy if I get a master's degree, but then you're not happy. I'll be happy if I get the doctorate degree. You get the doctorate, and then you still don't have a job. So you're not happy, right? So there is never going to be an end to desire. The only thing that can fulfill a person is God, the realization of gnosis, of manda, the full realization of one's soul in relationship to God, which is called divine marriage, the messianic marriage banquet. For the Gnostics, it was the bridal chamber. That is the only thing that can give lasting joy. Everything else, it's like pouring water into the sea. It's never going to overflow. It's never going to be full. The thoughts, the streams will keep on flowing into the sea. When people realize the agitation of loss, the futility of endless desires being sometimes fulfilled, sometimes not fulfilled, impermanence of everything and everyone around them. This is more weary than one can express, the teacher of Ecclesiastes says. Because the eye can see everything and not be satisfied. The ear can hear the best song and not be satisfied. And it's all been done before. Every generation thinks they're the first person that discovers drugs, sex, yoga, whatever it is. We all think we're the first one that ever thought of that. But it's not true. All generations before us discovered that, right? And it didn't fulfill them. And guess what? After the newness of whatever it is wears off, it's not going to fulfill you either, because there's nothing new under the sun. And it is this exhaustion with the futility of running after material pleasures and desires that drives people in earnest to the spiritual path. When they realize that I've tried everything and I'm still not happy. I've done this, this, that, and I'm still depressed. I still have anxiety. I still have this or that. Only then, when they come to a true spiritual path and they stick to it, will they realize that the inner happiness that flows within the heart center, the spiritual heart center, that's where it's at. It can never come from outside. Joy, peace, calmness, steadiness, equilibrium can only manifest from inside. It'll never be sustainable on the outside of things. Is God to blame for the mess humanity finds itself in, right? You have on the right here the serpent, which was interpreted in some traditions as the devil, around the apple. The serpent made Eve eat that apple, and then from there, bada bing, bada bang, we had human bodies. We took on a coat of skin, which is the body. And we had to work the land, toil the land, and give birth, labor. So everything got rough after this fall of humanity by the so-called Adam and Eve myth, right? So Ecclesiastes 1:12-14 says, I, the teacher, when king over Israel and Jerusalem, applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. I saw all the deeds that are done under the sun, and see, all is illusory and a chasing after the wind. So King Solomon was said to be the most wise man on earth in his day, and possibly of all time, according to the tradition, right? And he used his mind, his great wisdom, to seek and search out if there is anything worthwhile to seek under the sun. And he determined that it was all illusory, that it's all smoke and mirrors. He said, after all of his searching with all of his wisdom, it is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. So he seems to be blaming God for this inherent suffering, dis-ease, catharsis of the person that is becoming disgusted with the material world and is on the brink of seeking spiritual world or spiritual worlds. He's saying, what an unhappy business that God has given us. And to some extent, he's right. That might sound blasphemous. And this is one part that may have been considered heretical by our forefathers, right? Because he's kind of insinuating that this is God's fault, that we are permanently not at ease, uncomfortable, suffering because of the nature of the world and God placing us into the world. Do we really have a choice? I'm not sure. You can really have some great debates one-on-one with this. We are made or emanated from God in such a way that all of our senses flow outward. Our energy is meant to flow outward to engage with the world. My sight sees things. My sense of hearing hears things. My tongue tastes things. My skin touches things. My mind perceives things. And my nose smells things, right? The 6 senses, 5 physical senses and mind. And this energy is constantly going outwards. And when it attains something that it likes, it has pleasure. When it loses that pleasure, it suffers, right? And whenever we want something, we don't get it, that also causes frustration and suffering. So for as long as we are allowing our energy to flow outwards and become attached to the world, we're going to suffer due to impermanence, due to loss. because someday every person, place, thing, idea that has brought us comfort, it will cease someday. Someday. It's a natural law. It's impermanence. You can't escape it. And the biggest insult of impermanence is when we die, because we all know that our grandparents died, our great-grandparents died, but we never faced the fact that someday I'm going to die and it could be tomorrow, right? Our next breath is not guaranteed. But yet we keep on seeking in the outer world for our happiness, things that we can't take with us. It is an unhappy business that God has given human beings to be busy with. But ultimately, once you get disgusted with it, then you start developing spiritual discrimination. And God also gives us the choice to stay embedded in our desires or to start using our discrimination to seek something higher, something much more infinitely so fulfilling and blissful. My master used to say, whatever happiness or bliss you can get from the world is like candle flicker in comparison to the sun of bliss that you'll have when you're one with God. But no doubt, we were created that our energy goes outwards and downwards to the earth. And it is through spiritual practice, reflection, meditation, and prayer that we can turn our energy upward from the earth, up towards God, and union with that. Spiritual growth internally is forward and upward. If you reflect on that phrase, there's deep, deep meaning in that. All spiritual growth in the inner planes is forward and upward. There's a famous sage to end this conversation for the day. There's a famous sage that was asked by his students, if God knew that we'd get into this mess, because God is all-knowing, right? God is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. If he knew everything, then he knew that we'd get ourselves into this mess in humanity, that we get stuck in this suffering. And Judaism does allow for reincarnation. So you just keep on getting reborn and reborn in your Gilgal means a wheel. It means the same thing in Sanskrit as samsara, a wheel of endless birth and rebirth. The Hebrew word, which means the same thing as Gilgal, which means a wheel that rotates. You're constantly rotating between death, birth, rebirth, death, etc. All these things keep on going. And until you realize, until you become disgusted with impermanence, you'll never seek to transcend that endless wheel of life, death, rebirth, etc. Birth, growth, sickness, old age, decay, death, push, repeat. If you want to transcend this, then you have to use your spiritual discrimination and do the spiritual practices. Seek what will make you permanently happy, which is the divine that is within you and all around you in every molecule of space. So we can't blame God forever, right? Coming back to the story, I kind of got off the tangent, but they said to the sage, spiritual great master, why did God do this? And this great saint said, I don't know. But all I can tell you is that when you seek God and you attain God, you are forever in bliss and you'll never even want to ask why. And that might seem like a cop-out, but we can't understand infinity with finite minds either. We can't understand that scope. We're not meant to know everything. We're meant to know enough for this point in our evolution. And evolution is forever. There's never any end to spiritual growth. So ultimately, yes, I guess you could argue that God is responsible because he created everything and he knew that this would happen. But at a certain point, when you touch the stove and it burns you, and then you touch it again, ow, and then you touch it again, ow, and then you touch it again, ow. After the first time, if you keep on touching that stove and it keeps on burning you, whose fault is it? The person that made the stove or you? Of course, it's your own fault. Likewise, with every desire that fails to fulfill us, we keep on touching the stove of desires and getting burnt by frustration, unfulfillment, impermanence. It's not God's fault, it's yours. This is the message. Everything in this world, enjoy it, but consider it to be on loan to you from God. And when God wants it back, he will take it back. So enjoy everything, your children, your husband, your wife, your house, your car, your job, your dogs, your cat. And know that enjoy them fully as a gift from God, as a loan from God that one day we may have to give back. Even our minds and our bodies are on loan to us for a very short period of time. And the sun rises and goes down very quickly. Time keeps on moving. Use this time wisely to seek God, to grow, to expand consciousness until you are one with infinite consciousness. Never stop seeking until you fully attain. And when you fully attain, how will you know it? There's no longer attachment or aversion in that state. You understand everything is changing and it doesn't cause frustration within you. This is the goal of every spiritual path. And this is the message of Ecclesiastes. Let us conclude with the second cup of blessing. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother of the universe, please help me to be truly, deeply appreciative of all that I have that comes from you. But help me, even in moments of comfort and ease, remember that you are the source. May I make seeking you and pleasing you my highest priority. May I not forget in the whirlwind of life, of attaining and losing, of joy, of sadness, and all this whirlwind activity, may I always remember you with every breath. May every thought, word, and deed be for you and for attaining oneness with you. Amen. 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 Good Shabbat, everybody. I'll see you next Friday.